Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Tuesday, um, May 20th, 2025. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. I hope everybody's having a good week thus far. Hopefully, I'll do a little bit better and not like freeze up as much like last night. Anyways, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Um, Oh yeah, so now in my cartoon watchings, of course, I'm getting into the latter part of 1937 as they're making as apparently they're making the transition from harmonizing to their MGM is making their transition from harmonizing to their own studio, the last of the Happy Harmonies to be released throughout the rest of that year. Disney is making its transition to from United Artists to RKO Radio Productions for distribution. That's what's going on in the world of animation in 1937. So I actually need to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. I'll put some music on when I'm done. All right, sorry about that. Anyways, all right, so it looks like we do have at least one more person here. So why don't we go ahead and um, go ahead and talk about what's on tap for tonight as we're coming up on 3 minutes. So, got a couple articles I'm going to go over tonight from, from Bounding in the Comics. So we'll probably be sticking around there for a bit so we get kind of caught up with them. One of which is talking about Scott Snyder talking about how the industry needs to embrace monthly comics or it won't survive in a tough economy. And the other one we're going to talk about is the Ironheart co-creator slams Marvel Studios for shortchanging comic book talent. The compensation model hasn't kept pace with the success. So essentially, I think what he's saying there is that basically they need to be paying, since they are making more money, they need to be paying more money to their talent. So I think that's kind of where he's going with that. But plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up. We'll look back to last night's Go Home Raw before this Saturday's NXT event. Look ahead to tonight's NXT. Got a little bit of news coming out of AEW as well. And then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, anyways, let's see. So, with that being said, let's see. Why don't we go ahead and get started here then? Let me get to the first article here. And again, a friendly reminder: if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, anyways, so let's go ahead and get started then. As soon as I can get over to the thing here. All right, so here we go with the first article. So, absolute Batman writer Scott Snyder warns industry needs to embrace "quote unquote" monthly comics, or it quote won't survive in a tough economy unquote. Article by Sons of Cooley, published back on May 18th, which of course is this past Sunday. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he has to say on this matter. So, according to Absolute Batman writer Scott Snyder, one of his aims with The Dark Knight's latest adventure was to make sure each issue having a big bombastic moment that would get readers talking, as he believes that re-embracing the spirit of monthly comics is perhaps the only way for the Western comic book industry to survive through this current period of economic turmoil. Snyder, himself no stranger to the streets of Gotham thanks to his past work on such titles as Batman Volume 2, Batman Last Night on Earth Volume 1, and Batman Eternal Volume 1, spoke to his thoughts on the current state of the industry while speaking at AIPT Comics, David Brook. Um, let's see. In reflection of the fan favorite titles thus far 8-issue run. Mm-hmm. Their discussion largely focused on the book's content, such as what fans can expect um, from the upcoming Absolute Universe debut of Bane, and what real-world inspirations shaped this version of the Joker. Snyder eventually took a moment to take a step back from the on-the-ground action and addressed Absolute Batman's meta mission, in smaller quotes there, telling his host, quote, "It's reaffirmed everything I love about the medium. The joy of making people wait each month, of giving them something to talk about, and something that hits hard and sticks." Quote, "There's a reckoning happening in comics," unquote, the DC scribe then warned. Quote, "If we don't focus on what makes monthly comics special, we won't survive in a tough economy. So we're all taking our biggest swings," unquote. Well, I mean, there is, I think there is some truth in what he's saying. For those of you who, of course, watch the Sunday shows where we look back on a lot of these older, a lot of the Golden Age comics, right? You know, those were, particularly the anthologies, the early anthologies were well known for being um, monthly. So so if you haven't if you kind of have that feeling like okay, you're walking with this person in their world on a monthly basis. Oh, this month, Superman's dealing with Lex Luthor's latest scheme to conquer the world, and then and Batman's dealing with, let's say, like Calendar Man or something like that, and then next month, it's like so. Um, so I mean, there's I think some truth in what he's saying there. Of course, you have to make sure you're doing it right too, in order for it to be effective, though. Uh, hey, if it shows up, Absolute Universe is um, ed, uh, edgy load Cringe, Edgelord Cringe, I guess, um, or Edgelord Cringe, feels like it's made for Redditors. I don't know because I haven't read any of the current stuff. So Batman is corrupt, Superman is socialist, and Wonder Woman is Lady Death. I'll have to take your word for that because I haven't actually read any of the modern stuff. So um, I just report on it. uh, from there, Snyder explained that, quote, over the last few years, there's been this re-embracing of monthly comic book fundamentals. Quote, you see more series going for daring big moments that are going to get people talking, unquote, he said. Quote, cliffhangers, reminders of what the characters are struggling with. There's a joy to making them wait every month, unquote. Yeah, I think again the idea of the monthly series, it's like you're kind of following the character along, and you're watching them grow and progress over time instead of these like little, 5, 6 issue mini series that only that have a specific purpose. Quote, with monthly comics, you're asking readers to buy in again every issue, quote unquote, Snyder said. Quote, there's a joy to that. A joy to telling your friends, in smaller quotes, did you see what happened in Ultimate Spider-Man? In a story like Ultimate Spider-Man where, you get to where he's a family man and you're kind of seeing him balance the family and superhero a little bit differently, unlike in the traditional Spider-Man where, he's living with his Aunt May into his early 20s, through his college years and, helping to take care of her. Now he's like the head of the family, as it were, you know, taking care of a wife and son, right? A wife and children. I'll bring an example of one of his book's own, in smaller quotes, big moments. The Absolute Batman writer pointed to the scene in issue number 6 where the Cape Crusader is launching a one-man assault on Black Mask, lands on the crime boss's yacht, and proceeds to literally punt one of his underlings, a seeming child, into the sun and go, oh boy, that's a bit rough. But then again, is this person really a child, or are they maybe a little person or dwarf or whatever, however you want to say it. Regardless of either one it is, I'm sure there are a lot of people going to be crying foul over it. Hey, Rick. Thanks for popping in, my friend. Um, yeah, some of this stuff might be interesting to you. So hopefully you'll, if anything grabs your attention, you'll comment on it. Feel free to comment on it and all that. Anyways, as I continue on with the article here, quote, that page came out of a joke, unquote, laughed Snyder. Quote, small quote, artist, so Nick, artist Dragota, showed me the scene and said, this might be too much. Um, and I was like, in smaller quotes, no way, dude. You're keeping that in. On smaller quote. That's exactly what we're going for. Over the top, outrageous, and unforgettable. You want those moments where people go, in quotes, What the hell did I just read? So Rex, do you try for anything like that when you write when you do your comics? You try to go for the whole trying to get people to say, oh, what the hell did I just read? Uh, hmm. Ask any regular comic book reader, and odds are they'll agree that while there are some expectations like absolute Batman, or while there are some exceptions like absolute Batman, or the aforementioned Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 do exist, Snyder's overview of the industry's current storytelling habits is unfortunately as on point as Absolute Batman's ear knives going through Black Mask. I said, "Whoa, that's kind of a nasty scene." I'm glad they just described that and not actually showed us. Oh boy, that does sound kind of over the top, but unforgettable. I'm sure seeing a pair of bat ears going through somebody's eye sockets would leave quite an impression, to say the least. Over the last decade, the Western industry has seen a rise in creators, in small quotes, writing for the trade. In doing so, leading the medium to be filled with more stories that may read well when taken as a whole, but are borderline unbearable to read month to month. While there exist numerous reasons for this shift, themselves ranging from newer, more insecure creators attempting to emulate film and television in an attempt to make the medium, in small quotes, more respectable, on small quotes, to publishers understanding that trades are more appealing to newer readers attempting to get into comics, on small quote. It has ultimately resulted in many individual issues being filled with loads of exposition and world building, which can be interesting, but does not usually lead to readers rushing out and begging their friends to pick up a given book. Oh, aye, yikes! They did decide to show us that. That's quite horrific, to say the least. All in all, whether other creators will follow Snyder's advice, and thus whether the industry will endure the Trump administration's ongoing, in smaller quote, reckless abandon to its economic policies, remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the next issue of Absolute Batman, Volume 1, Number 9, hit shelves on June 11th. So there we go with that one. That one went a bit quick there. I'll get ready to move on to the next article here I'll get into. And as I said, if you guys haven't already yet, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the question to the best of my ability. So, anyways, let's see. Yeah, almost 20 minutes in. All right. So let's get back into the article then. This is probably the second one we'll be doing tonight. So, Ironheart co-creator slams Marvel Studios for shortchanging comic book talent. Uh, The compensation model hasn't kept pace, in quotes here, the compensation model hasn't kept pace with the success, unquote. So, as I said earlier when I was introducing this, when I was kind of previewing this article, I think he's basically saying that even though they've started to make more money, um, they haven't been paying the talent accordingly. So, article by Spencer McCooley, published May 19th, which of course was yesterday. All right, so ahead of the upcoming premiere of the character's Disney Plus series, veteran artist and Ironheart co-creator Mike Deodato Jr. Has added his voice to the growing chorus of comic book creators who have found themselves fed up with Marvel Studios' refusal to properly compensate the writers and artists whose works helped establish the MCU as a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. A former Marvel Comics artist who, prior to his 2019 decision to break from the publisher in order to pursue his own projects, penciled the new Avengers era of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Norman Osborn's time in control of the titular team, in Thunderbolts Volume 1, and Riri Williams' official debut in the Brian Michael Bendis penned Invincible Iron Man Volume 3, took aim at the Disney subsidiary corporate greed on May 13th, the day before the official debut of Ironheart's first trailer. Taking to his various social media accounts with his thoughts, Deodato Jr. Shared a Disney Plus hosted teaser of said trailer and began, quote, as a comic book artist, there are few feelings more satisfying than seeing a character you helped create come to life on the big screen, unquote. Quote, tomorrow the trailer for Ironheart drops, and I'm thrilled to share a scene from the preview featuring a moment I originally brought to life on the comics page, unquote. He added, referring to the scene wherein the title heroine stops a truck dead in its tracks by smashing its hood in, which he originally um, depicted in Invincible Iron Man Volume 3, number 11. Quote, Riri Williams, a character I co-created with the amazing Brian Michael Bendis, is finally taking flight, and the result is stunning. It's a powerful reminder of the magic that happens when imagination meets real-world production, unquote. However, that was where his praise ended. As from there, Deodato Jr. admitted, quote, but as much as I celebrate this moment, there's a bitter edge to it. You see, while Marvel has built an empire worth billions on the backs of its creators, the compensation model hasn't kept pace with the success, unquote. Quote, I'm in a good place, one of the best paid creators in the industry, and I truly appreciate that, unquote, said the artist. Quote, but it's not about me, it's about the principle. When a character you poured your heart into helps fuel the engine of a multi-billion-dollar machine, a small share of that success feels only fair. Unquote. Well, yeah, but it kind of comes down to, well, just how small or big a share are you talking about too? But if you feel that maybe you should be getting a little bit more than should, what I mean? That's some people could argue that's debatable, but um, that's the nature of business sometimes, right? Quote, creators don't ask for billions or even millions, unquote, he continued. Quote, just a nod, a bit of recognition, and a share that reflects the contribution they've made. It's not just good ethics, it's good business. Happy creators stay invested, inspired, and loyal. But when the business side doesn't match the creative investment, creators naturally drift toward projects where they retain control, where their work can lead to lasting financial security. That's why more and more of us are focusing on creator-owned projects where we can truly share the success of our creations. Rex, if you're still in here, or if there's anybody else here, who like anybody else who is a comic book creator, do you guys want to add to that statement or anything like that? Do you guys want to add to that particular conversation? Maybe give your thoughts on that matter. Um, as I said, this is the place to do it. To express those views. I always try to keep an open mic for anybody who wants it. And as we wait to see if anybody does take me up on that. See, drawing his thoughts to a close, Deodato Jr. asserted, quote, I'm not bitter, just realistic. I'm proud to see Riri come to life, and I'll always appreciate the fans who make that possible. But I hope one day the companies that thrive on our imaginations will truly recognize the value we bring to the table. Unquote. Quote, Marvel, you can do better. Unquote, he concluded. And I genuinely hope you will. For the sake of the characters we love, the creators who bring them to life. And there we go with that one. So, anyways, all right. So, as we, of course, don't have anybody um, having much more to say on what we just talked about, of course. I think those are the only two articles we're going to um, go over tonight. Let's see. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the wrestling wrap up here. We do have something, of course, go over last night's Monday Night Raw, look ahead to tonight's NXT, as well as look ahead to this weekend's Saturday night's main event. As we do have some, as well as the Money in the Bank match coming up at on June, I believe it's the 7th. So, um, All right. Anyways. All right. So last night's Monday Night Raw. Um, came to us from the Bon Secours Wellness Center in Greenville, South Carolina, on Netflix with, of course, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on commentary. The opening match saw Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough with Carlito in their corner, defeating AJ Styles and Penta after, of course, El Grande Americano got involved in the match, headbutting, coming out of the crowd to headbutt Penta in the back of the head with his mask, and then Balor taking full advantage of that by dragging Penta back into the ring and executing the coup de grace, as he calls it, that double diving foot stomp onto Penta for the 3 count. That's how the match. It was also reported last night that Roxanne Perez ended up joining the Judgment Day. As the next match was the first of 2 women's qualifying matches for the Money in the Bank matchup. That's due to come out. Next week. So Alexa Bliss was the first woman to qualify on Friday Night SmackDown. So tonight we'll have 2 more women's qualifiers. As Roxanne Perez beat Becky Lynch and Natalia with some help coming from Lyra Valkyrie, who dragged Lynch out of the ring and fought her to the back as she's still getting her revenge on Lynch for some of the antics Lynch did. But while Natalia was distracted by the whole commotion going on between Lynch and Valkyria, Roxanne Perez was able to hit her version of the leg trap sunset flip powerbomb called Pop Rocks for a 3 count to advance into the Money in the Bank match. Then Sheamus defeated Grayson Waller with signs continuing to show that A-Town Down Under seems to be on the verge of a split as Waller tried to basically leave the ring area. Fury kept him from going anywhere, which led to, of course, Sheamus beating up on Waller a bit more, only to finish him off with a brogue kick, and continuing to reestablish himself since his return just after WrestleMania. The other Money in the Bank qualifying match on the night happened next. It was another women's match in which Rhea Ripley defeated Kairi Sane and Zoe Stark, but that wasn't the big story of the match because there were sources saying that was not it was not originally planned for Sane to lose the match. But what happened during the match when Zoe Stark went to execute a missile drop kick onto Kairi Sane, she landed on her leg wrong and really hurt her leg, to where she had to be escorted out of the ring to the back, and with Rhea and Io left, or not Io, but Kairi left. Io hit the riptide on Sane. Now, the thing is, they were looking to, so I think the original ending of the, based on what everybody was talking about, the original ending of the match was going to have Sane probably, get the pin on Stark. They did not necessarily want Rhea to take the pin because Rhea still got a lot of heat right now. People would say she doesn't need the Money in the Bank win, but they just had to go on a fly here. They didn't want her losing any momentum. Shane, even though she just came back, they didn't necessarily want her to lose any momentum too, kind of one of those lesser two evils kind of situation or what have you. It's like you have two bad options. Which one do you think is? You just take the better of the two options here. You know, um, obviously they never like having somebody making their return having to take a loss, because then that already puts them on the back burner already when you have to do that. But now, of course, with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, are three of the six participants have already been set. Alexa Bliss from this past Friday, and then Roxanne Perez and Rhea Ripley from Raw advanced tonight. The main event saw Jey Uso defeat Braun Breaker by disqualification when after just having enough of Paul Heyman's interference. Now, of course, the title was not on the line. The world title was on the line after having enough of Paul Heyman's interference, as he was trying to go after Paul Heyman. Seth Rollins came out of the crowd, attacked Uso from behind, leading to a disqualification, a 2-on-1 attack by Rollins and Breaker, only for Sami Zayn and CM Punk to come out to make the save on Uso. In which, of course, setting up for and talking about for the match coming up on Saturday, Saturday night's main event, a tag match, and the card has been finalized for Saturday night's main event. We'll talk about that in just a moment, of course. Where the Saturday night's main event card will be as follows. I actually didn't want to do that. My mistake there. So on this Saturday night's main event, coming from Tampa, Florida, coming from the Younging Center in Tampa, Florida, with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on commentary on NBC. In a steel cage match, you'll have Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest trying to settle their feud once and for all. You also will have CM Punk and Sami Zayn going up against Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins, with Paul Heyman in their corner. In a match for the WWE World Heavyweight title, Jey Uso defends against Logan Paul. Logan Paul got a shot on Uso after his matches earlier in the night. Of course, Logan was involved in a segment with Gunther. Gunther is set to be the next person challenge. Whoever wins this match, he'll be challenging them at Money in the Bank, from what I understand. But trying to get the upper hand, Logan Paul attacked Jey after his match with after CM Punk and Sami Zayn fended off Breaker and Rollins. In the main event, we'll see John Cena take on R-Truth. There's been two stories going around, but at least as confirmed yesterday, the undisputed title will not be on the line in this match, albeit on cage match. It is being promoted as an undisputed WWE title match. So that's up for, now to just take a look, now just to go over what's to look forward to on tonight's NXT. See what we have to look forward to on that tonight. On tonight's NXT, as soon as I grab that, of course. On tonight's NXT from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, with, of course, obvious, I believe it will be Booker T, Vic Joseph, and Corey Graves on commentary. Sean Spears is set to take on Josh Briggs in a singles match. In a number one contendership match for the women's North American title, Zarya will be taking on Kalani Jordan. In a triple threat match, Ashante Adonis takes on Sean Legacy, and they take on Javon Evans. And in a tag team match, OTM, I guess that's Out of the Mud is what they're known as, Bronco Nemo and Lucian Price take on the Chase U's Cale Dixon and Uriah Collins with Andre Chase. Of course, it was announced recently that Chase U member, I think his real name is Josh Cherry. I don't remember what his name on NXT was, but he was just recently released as part of the big part of the set of releases. So plus we'll probably hear from Joe Hendry and Trick Williams as they prepare for their two matches coming up at TNA and Battleground this Sunday. We'll talk, of course, more about what's going to be going down at Battleground tomorrow when we go over the results for NXT here. And with that, we'll talk just a bit quickly about some AEW news as Dustin Rhodes, known to WWE fans as Goldust, but the natural Dustin Rhodes, recently celebrated 15 years of sobriety. So congratulations to Dustin on that, on 15 years of sobriety. He's considered one of the more respected individuals not just as a wrestler, but as a man. So had a hand in training a number of talents in recent years. So he's of course currently the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion with Sammy Guevara as the Sons of Texas. He's also 1/3 of the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Champions with Marshall and Ross Von Erich, and he and Sammy are set up for this Sunday to challenge the Hurt Syndicate for the AEW World Tag Team titles after winning a number one contendership on this past Saturday night's Collision over Action Andretti and Leo Rush, the Crew. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up. So why don't we go ahead now and move on to this day in niche history. So today being, of course, history. So today being, of course, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in niche history. So the first thing, of course, I would like to do is I'd like to actually wish a happy birthday to voice actor Mark Thompson. 50 years old today, born on this date back in 1975. Mark Thompson, who some of you who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s probably know him, or late 90s, early 2000s. Of course, from his he's done work, of course, with 4Kids, on the anime dubbing side of it. Worked with 4Kids, Central Park West, New York AV Post, among others as well. And of course, he's worked on a number of animated shows as well. Of course, probably his very first set of voice roles came as part of the cast of Daria, in which among the characters he played in that, but some of the more notable characters he played in MTV's Daria included dim-witted quarterback Kevin Thompson, hypertensive social sciences teacher Anthony DiMartino, and overly sensitive English teacher Timothy O'Neill. Of course, among some of the other characters he was, of course, known for, let's see, he was Duke Devlin. Of course, he he played Megatron in the Transformers Cyberverse, and Casey Jones in the, I think, 2003 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Among his anime dubbing works include, of course, Duke Devlin in Yu-Gi-Oh! Numerous characters in Pokemon. Let's see, so many you can barely count them all. Let's see. Of course, he played all three generations of Mutsu in Shura no Toki, Age of Chaos. He was he had a couple characters in Shingu Secret of the Stellar Wars. Basically, anything that was dubbed out of New York, you could almost be sure for certain that that Mark Thompson had his voice in there somewhere. Just have to listen for it. So happy 50th birthday to the very talented voice actor from New York, Mark Thompson. So now, hey, Metal. I'm sure you probably have some memories to share of hearing Mark Thompson's voice there. But feel free to do so if you wish to. Anyways, moving on to the next piece of Nietzsche history as we move ahead to the year 2000, 25 years ago today. On this date, 25 years ago today, Chris Harris, Wildcat Chris Harris, of course, America's Most Wanted fame. He won the NWA North American Heavyweight title on this date back in 2000 over Air Paris. So on this date back in 2000, 25 years ago today, Chris Harris defeated Air Paris for the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship. Of course, this is still a few years before he and James Storm would win multiple NWA World Tag Team titles in the early 2000s for Impact Wrestling. But that happened 25 years ago today. And now, of course, the final piece in each history we have for you guys tonight. On this date, 10 years ago today, back in 2015, the 15th issue of Dark Horse's Season 10 Buffy the Vampire Slayer went on sale on this date back in 2015. That was about the halfway mark. It was the conclusion of the relationship status complicated storyline, which was written by Christos and Gage, with art done by Rebecca Isaacs. Richard Starkings and Jimmy Betancourt did the lettering. Coloring was done by Daniel Jackson. For the comic people in here, any of those names sound familiar to you guys? Anyways, on this date, 10 years ago, 2015, the 15th issue of Season 10 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer went on sale on this date, selling for $3.50, 28 pages, 10 years ago today. So, let's see now. So I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we're back here tomorrow with more niche news. We'll, of course, have more stories, probably from Bounding into Comics, because I want to try to get caught up with them. I'm still a day or two behind them. Kind of get caught up on some of their works. Well, of course, get you caught up on what happened on tonight's on tonight's NXT. Tell you what happened there. Tell you about what's going to be happening at Battleground this Sunday. NXT Battleground. We'll be talking also about what will be going on AEW Dynamite tomorrow night as part of the wrestling wrap up. Get you caught up on all the late on what happened in niche history, comics, cartoons, anime, manga, pro wrestling, all that on tomorrow's date, as well as talk more. And then, of course, this Sunday, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics, as we will be we'll be looking back to comics that went on sale in May of 1940. I believe we'll be I have to double check this, but I think we might be getting into novelty at this point, novelty press, but I haven't had a chance to really check into that yet, but we will soon. We'll hopefully by tomorrow. But with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and I will see you all tomorrow.